Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What you're about to watch is a recording of a workshop that I did where we went over different recitations. So, like, we took different recitations from different reciters, Shaykh Afasy, Shaykh other, Qur'an and so on, who are reciting in nahawand. Okay, and this workshop it's a little bit more advanced. It was meant for students who already went through my Overnight Qari experience and already studied the patterns of maqam nahawand and the basics of nahawand with me. Okay, so now we're looking at we've already covered patterns. We've already covered how to recite in nahawand, the different patterns, the structure of the maqam, and now we were looking at different recitations to see how are these reciters how does their recitations line up with like the structure and stuff that we taught. So for example, Shaykh Afasy does something in his recitation. What is he doing in terms of the structure of the maqam that we learned previously in class? So just a little disclaimer, it's a little bit more advanced. If you're new to maqamat, you'll still enjoy it, but please be aware that you're not getting in that, like you're not seeing that context, which is the stuff that we cover in our Overnight Qari experience. If you're interested in that, if you want to learn the structure of maqamat, if you want to learn how to, to make sense of even this, if we say a reciter is going from 1 to 5, what does that mean? In our Overnight Qari experience, we talk about that. We teach you the structure of maqamat, so you understand when we say, oh, the 1 of nahawand or the 5, what that means, and it opens up really a whole world of maqamat to you and enables you to learn maqamat in a much easier and faster way. You can check it out, links in the description below, overnightqari.com. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the video.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum to you all. Glad to have you here. What we will do today is essentially, so in a past workshop we did, this is part of the coaching program. So for those of you who are visiting, we have these workshops, and in a past workshop we had gone through like an overview of maqam nahawand, kind of like all the main patterns and so on that kind of to get students started with the maqam. And if you've taken Overnight Qari with me in the past, then you would have gone over these patterns, right? You would have seen like so kind of like a breakdown of the main patterns in nahawand, like 3 2 1 0 1 1 2 3 4 3 2 1. So what I'll do, I'll pull this up on the screen so you guys can see very quickly the main patterns that we went over previously. And then what I want to do is just kind of go over a few recitations, because when it comes to maqamat, when it comes to anything really, there's sometimes like different ways of learning the same thing, right? I often give these examples of cooking, or food-based examples. Like there's a certain amount of cooking you can learn from following a recipe, like a paper-based recipe, like you follow the steps or something you find online. And then there's observation, right? You go in the kitchen, your mom says, come in the kitchen with me and cook with me, right? And it's you listening, it's you actively participating in what's going on, and you'll learn different things that way, like kind of more experiential learning. And with maqamat, again, it could be maqamat, it could be sports, right? There's certain things you'll learn from a book about how to play soccer, and then there's certain things you'll watch videos of this certain player doing this type of skilled move or a certain play. And you might have someone break it down for you, right? Okay, here's this play. Watch how this play develops. The team is doing this versus this. This player does this. So it's helpful sometimes to kind of engage with the material. And we're talking here about maqamat from these different angles, right? And then sometimes there's just straight up listening and enjoying, right? So as a listening, an attentive listener, right? You have some knowledge of maqamat. You have some idea of the patterns. You might just be listening to a reciter do a maqam. But now because you have this background of, okay, this is how the maqam is working, this is how it's structured, when you listen, you're like a little bit more of an informed listener, and you could pay attention to what the reciter is actually doing. So you're not just listening as someone who doesn't know maqamat, but you're listening as someone who does know maqamat, and it adds to kind of the experience of what you take away from that recitation. Okay, let's start. As we go along, I'll check the chat, because it's sometimes when I share the screen, it's hard to I can't see multiple things at once on my screen. So let me start with this one from Yusuf. And I'll share a sound. So essentially, like before we get into the specifics, right, of the clips, the kind of overall thing that I'm trying to get you guys to appreciate today is number one, that the maqamat, all of them, and today we're dealing with nahawand specifically, are going to be based on the stuff that I'm teaching you in class. Okay, so if we've gone over a pattern for nahawand, like a structure of nahawand, right? Now, when you go in the real world and you hear different examples of nahawand, and sometimes you're like, wait a sec, how does that relate to kind of what we did in class? Kind of start with the idea that it does relate to what we did in class. Okay, and that'll be incredibly helpful because it helps you to know that there is a connection, even if you don't hear the connection right away, right? That means that you can start to then look for the connection. It's like you can assume, okay, assuming of course that the clip is properly labeled, right? If it's from like a proper maqam channel on YouTube and it's like labeled, okay, this is maqam nahwan, you can be pretty confident. If it's like a random someone just uploaded a clip and said this is maqam rust or something, then maybe it could be like mislabeled, and that's a possibility on YouTube. But assuming it's properly labeled, now you listen to it, generally speaking, you should be able to find some connection between what the reciter is doing and stuff we've done in class. So the patterns that we've done, and that'll help you. So the patterns there, or the frame or the structure, will help you be grounded. So you know that, okay, this is it's the same maqam, and I can find or I can search for these patterns. The second thing is to appreciate that the maqamat has so much variability, right? That even though I'm giving you, like if we have a scale, no one is reciting from 1 to 8 and back down. You're doing a bunch of different stuff in between the whole scale that like kind of plays out in different sounds or different expressions, right? So that's why sounds different than but they're both nahawand. Why are they both nahawand? Because if you continue out the whole thing, then you'll see that they overlap. Like it's like the whole picture, and you have these different pieces of the puzzle that then attach together, so you do have the whole thing. Okay, so that's something else to keep in mind. And then the last thing to keep in mind is that when you're listening to these different recitations, you want to just appreciate sometimes that different reciters have different ways of doing things, right? You want to sometimes listen to different clips, bring it back to what we've learned in class, but also then just appreciate that, hey, I could try this expression of nahawand or try this other expression of nahawand. And the last thing that's the hardest part for students is to be okay with reciters doing random things that maybe don't really fit the maqam. So going off of the structure a little bit, that's something you sometimes, as a student, might have to experiment with yourself. Just try, I don't quite understand. I know this is nahawand. I don't quite understand the full pattern of it, but hey, I know it's nahawand. This part of it feels like nahawand, but this other part, I'm just gonna run with it and see what happens. Okay, let me start with this clip from Yusuf. I had a clip of Shaykh Afasy myself, but let's start with this one. So there's two ways to do this. I'm gonna, for the most part, just try to play the clip and maybe in some cases do like a specific breakdown. But for the most part, I don't want to, if we take, all the clips and like we try to break it down note by note, step by step, it'll take, this will go on really long. So just enjoy the reading. If anyone has questions, if you're like, hey, wait a sec, he just did that thing over there, can we talk about that? Then just type it in the chat box. I'll keep the chat open and we can listen.
من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن.
Okay, so everyone following there, the nahwan. Okay, so he's in this lower part of the maqam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So in something like this is an example of what I was talking about before, where he's doing these fluctuations, but you can, even if you can't map out every step, you can get a sense that, you know what, this sounds like 32101. And now there's some other stuff going on there, but 32101 is like the frame over there. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, I'll do that again.
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن.
So Yusuf is asking, what does he do in the first ayah? Okay, so what do you guys notice? Putting aside numbers, what would you like if you had to describe qualitatively, like what does he do? So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Yeah. So Yusuf says it's higher, sweeter. Muqtasim says he's going up. So he goes up, but he jumps up, meaning if he's going down here, he's settling at the bottom. Now there's some sort of a jump. Okay, so Yusuf says it's higher, sweeter. Now what happens when you go higher in your voice, right? I was actually thinking to do a video on this. I don't know if, let's see if he's here. Okay, there's a Hassan here. I don't know which Hassan it is, but one of my Hassans, past Hassan, had asked me a question about this idea of Quran and Jawab, right? That sometimes comes up if you're looking at maqamat stuff online. Anyways, the voice as you go up, right? The tonality changes, right? So if I say, okay, so this is Hassan Chaudhry you have here today, the other Hassan. So listen to my voice quality. You'll see that it changes the tonality, meaning the sound of the voice, right? That's a bit high for me. But the quality of the voice, so we're changing the pitch, but the tonality changes as well. So that's Yusuf is saying it's higher, sweeter. His voice, the tonality is changing as he goes higher, but he's going high to, like, if I say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم So that's 1-5. If you've done nahawand with me, we've done the 1-5 pattern quite a bit. Okay, so he's jumping to that middle portion of the maqam. Play it again. So with me, you guys would have done 1, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5. So it's a play on that because he's not going all the way back to the 5. So he's in that area. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ar-Rahman. Right? So he's not going all the way back up.
علم القرآن خلق الإنسان. أنا لازلت في النهاوند. علمه البيان علمه البيان.
Okay, can you all hear that? So that's our 3, 2, 1, 0, 1 with some fluctuation in there. So 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1. So there's like a fluctuation on the 3, 2 over there.
الشمس والقمر بحسبان. شوف الدلالة مالت المقام أثرت في الناحية الفرايحية، حسستني بفرح.
Okay, so let's pause that one there. Let's try a different one. Yusuf has another one. Afasy. Abdurrahman had one. Okay, so I'll do this one, and then Muqtasim has. Okay, so Yusuf is saying, the first one he has transitions. Second one, after 2 minutes, he does something quite higher. Yusuf, do you have a timestamp on the second one? because I just want to go through stuff quickly. I'll pause this one for now. Okay, so Yusuf says this one here, around 1 minute.
من عذاب السعير يعملون له ما يشاء من محاريب وتماثيل وجفان كالجواب وقدور الراسيات اعملوا آل داود شكرا وقليل من عبادي الشكور.
Okay, this is a good example. So in a case like this, Yusuf, what's the question? Do we just want to listen to it and appreciate that it's nahawand, or is there a specific question there? Can you guys all hear, and then for the rest of you, can you all hear that that's nahawand? So he's going higher to the high part of the maqam, but especially listen here. Listen to the ending, right? Because the ending is always where the maqam. Remember the maqam, for those of you who've done multiple maqamats with me, you would have seen that, whenever we, especially in the Overnight Qari class, whenever I teach you guys a maqam, once we get to like 6, 7, 8, I always kind of leave it, and it's a little ambiguous. And the reason I don't emphasize it as much as the bottom, and the reason for that is that the bottom of the maqam is where you're gonna get the sound of the maqam, right? So if you're dealing with Hijaz, the Hijaz sound is gonna come from that bottom portion of the maqam, the 1, 2, 3, 4. Nahawand, the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's gonna like give you that sound of the maqam. Now, when you go high, there's room for variation. It could sound like this, it could sound like that, and it might even touch this other maqam, but it's always gonna come back to that same maqam if you're still in that maqam. So listen to the ending here. From وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ.
وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ.
Right? وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Okay? So with that in mind, now this is what I mean. You listen to something and you're like, wait a sec, I don't know what he did there, but I can tell that he came back to the bottom and it's nahawand. That's a good place to be. That means that you can hear that he's in nahawand. Now it's just a matter of kind of rewinding and seeing where he goes from there. So that's what we're going to do together. So we go back to here. Yusuf, he's definitely within the 8, right? So so he's within that. No, he's not going higher than 8. Let's play it again. So use that as a frame. You'll hear that he's centering around the 1, centering around the 5. يعملون. Okay.
ما يشاء من محاريب وتماثيل وجفان كالجواب وقدور الراسيات.
So, see, he's actually a lot of times in here. So he's not going higher than 8. You're hearing that, Yusuf, in his reading, everyone? 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5. In ما يشاء. Let's go back.
كالجواب يعملون له ما يشاء.
Okay. Yusuf was asking ما يشاء. Okay, maybe on Yasha a little bit higher. Yeah, he's going to the 9 or the 2 over there. Yeah, good catch. He fluctuates a little bit on the 9, which is the 2 of the next octave. Okay, and for you guys, the same way that I just figured that out right now is how you guys can figure it out as well. You start with what's obvious is like the bottom here. So you find his 1, find the 5, find the 8, and then from there it's a little bit, you can be oriented in what the reciter is doing. So so you see how that's coherent, because now when I've gone through, I found his 1, I found his 5, I found his 8, and then I can see where yasha, that actual word ma yasha'u, falls. It's a little bit higher, and if we add the steps, we come back home, right? So so that's how you can get a sense that, okay, this makes sense. That's probably the 9, because if we add it all up, we're back to the beginning. Hassan. Okay, Hassan is here. The other Hassan. Which maqam would be in the next octave? So generally speaking, the maqams are going to repeat. Okay? And that's, I say generally speaking, because see, once you get past 5 or 6, it's an open field. Like you can do a lot of different stuff, right? Yeah, Abdurrahman saying he tends to automatically transition to kurd, right? For some reason. Not for any reason. The reason is that it goes well together. And it's very commonly done. So if you listen to reciters reading in nahawand, sometimes you go high, and even from 5 to 8, you might transition to kurd, or you might do like a little bit of rust notes or something of that sort. So now even if you go higher than 8, that's even more options, right? But generally speaking, if you're talking about nahawand, you'll have nahawand 1 to 8, and then from 8 you'll start another scale of nahawand, right? And then again you'll get to another 8, you'll start another scale of nahawand, and then going lower as well, you'll have another scale of nahawand lower. Hassan, would the next octave be the jawab? So Hassan, I actually mentioned you like 5-10 minutes ago, but I think you weren't here because you had asked me about qarar and jawab. Octave, Yusuf, is octo, 8. So 8 notes, right? So nahawand, any maqam, you're going to have it kind of defined as 8 notes. So that's nahawand. Okay, so 8 notes. So Hassan, I started putting together some notes to do this video that you asked me. You asked me this question about qarar and jawab. I'll give you like the 2-second summary. Qarar is just like the lower part of the maqam, right? And jawab is higher up. That's a general answer. There's more to it, but jawab could be the next octave, but it's not necessarily the next octave. That's my understanding, right? Yeah, Yusuf. So he stays in nahawand that whole ayah, right? So the top part of the maqam is going to be a little ambiguous. But the whole thing is nahawand. Okay, let's jump to Abdurrahman's clip. If you have questions, if you want me to go back to a clip from before, or we didn't finish it, but I want to get to some of the mujawid stuff as well. And then if we have time, we can chat and you guys can ask other questions. So Abdurrahman queued it up from here.
في ضلال كبير وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير.
Any specific question there, Abdurrahman? It's good. I don't know if you guys can tell. It's nahawand. لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير.
No specific
I'll play a little
questions
bit
per
more.
se.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a good example of kind of using the basic patterns. When I came across this clip, I'm like, you know what, there's probably a lot you can do with the basic patterns because he's kind of moving from 1 to 5 and then back down again.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it's a good example of what can be done in that low range, I guess.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. I'll play a little bit more and then we can
وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير.
Yeah, that's good. Maybe I should keep these and send it to you guys afterwards, like a list of clips. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? Because I had a few. If you guys want me to come back to any afterwards and then listen to it a little bit more, we can do that too. So this is Mu'tasim shared this. Shaykh Nuaina, Shaykh Afasy. Let's listen to this one since we were on Afasy already, and then Parvez is adding Shaykh al-Husari.
I was answering her question. The student asked a question with regards to who recites a simple nahawand, and I said husri. I was just responding.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, this clip, Yusuf says, let's try this clip instead.
يا قوم إنما هذا نحو يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار.
So Yusuf, why don't you take the mic? And what's the question specifically? Maybe we can take a few minutes together as a group and figure it out.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So my question specifically is in the first ayah, it seems as if it's the like he goes up and then he goes down. And then that kind of makes sense to me. But then in the second ayah, I still kind of get it. It sounds like he's going more to like the 5 area. Like
The second ayah, or the repetition of the first ayah, you mean the second time he reads the ayah?
Yeah, the second time he reads.
Okay. So say the thing you said. So when he does this, he does what?
The second time he recites the ayah, it sounds like he goes to like 5, like
Okay.
And he stays in that area. And then the third ayah, I'm not really sure what's going on there.
Okay, let me see.
المفروض العادة إني يعني لما أعلى
I can't
من عمل سيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثلها. هني يعني من النهاوند انتقلت إلى الكرد.
So he's saying there he's going from at the top part, he's going from nahawand to kurd.
أنا وجدت نفسي هابط ماني خلق يعني أو ماني قادر أصعد يعني. فقلت يا قومي.
Okay, so يا قومي Okay, so that's the bottom part of nahawand. 3, 2, 1, 0, 1.
Okay.
Okay.
إنما هذا نحو.
Right? Yeah, he's showing. Ya qawmi innama. Okay, so that's the bottom part of nahawand. He's kind of showing like that's your qarar, your portion, your bottom portion. He's showing that this is nahawand.
يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار يا قوم إنما هذه.
So now he jumps, right? Ya qawmi innama. He's jumping to the 5. Ya qawmi. Ya qawmi innama.
Okay. So he
That's common, especially if we look at another clip that a student asked me to look at. The Husari style, right? Husari style, he's reading a lot in the middle here. Right? 5, 3. So he's starting here. Ya qawmi innama hadhihi al-hayatu ad-dunya mata'. I wish I could scroll in a thing. Let me just refresh it.
يا قوم إنما هذا نحو. يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع.
See, so and then centering around the middle, but coming back to the bottom.
وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار.
So you hear Darul Qarar coming back to the bottom. And then he's gonna go higher. Okay?
Okay, I have a question.
Let me jump. So let's skip this one for now. We had a lot of Afasy kind of things. I'll move this one over here. So this is done. That's done. That's done. Done. Okay, so I have Shaykh Al-Hamidi. This one, a student asked me to Shaykh Mohamed Hady Toure. I don't know how the name is actually pronounced, but he's this reciter, I think from Senegal, I think. And he imitates Shaykh Al-Husari. Has a beautiful recitation.
واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ولا تعد عيناك عنهم.
Okay, what are you all hearing? It's that Shaykh Al-Husari style, which some of you, if you've been in my programs where we've broken it down, it's centering around the 5, just like I showed you here. 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, like that. So okay. At the very end, he went to a different maqam, so I don't know if he's specifically reading in nahawand the whole way through.
ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا ولا
So 5, 3, 4, 5. 5, 3, 4, 5. So that's the frame of it wide, but he's gonna go higher. So 5, 1, 5, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2. Often ending a little bit higher. Shaykh Afasy does that. He tends to end a little bit higher and bring it back up in the middle. So his recitation then, and this is another thing to pay attention to when you're listening to recitations, is that even though when I'm teaching you guys, we're dealing with the scale 1 to 8, and we always kind of try to resolve back at the 1, you might listen to a clip, and sometimes the clip is part of a longer thing, and it doesn't necessarily resolve back at the 1. It might be you're listening to a recitation that's centered in the middle of the maqam, and that could throw you off as a student. Because you're looking for that 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, you might not always hear it. Sometimes you have to use your imagination. You have to use your imagination to like extend the pattern. Okay, so you listen to the part. If I say ah, and I ask you what that is, it might sound confusing because it doesn't quite resolve by itself. So you have to like extend it and carry on the rest of the recitation to then see like how that piece fits with the rest of the pieces. You know, again, like to use this analogy of a puzzle, it's like if you have the whole picture of the puzzle and then you have one piece and you see the color, okay, this piece is like blue on this side and like pink on the other side, right? So you have to like use your imagination to like see the picture, right? You have to be able to see that picture and be like, okay, wait a sec. Or another example, green and blue, right? Just to keep it simple. This is the grass and this is the sky, right? So you have to be able to look at that picture, that one piece, and say, okay, it's green on the bottom, it's blue on top. And if it was to go down, that would be the grass. If it's to go up, that's the sky, right? So something like that's happening with the maqamat as well. Harways is asking, Imam Husri has 3 speeds available, Muallim, Murattal, Mujawid. Which do you recommend? They have different purposes, right? So the depends what you're trying to do. Like if you're just casually listening, again, it's totally different. So Muallim recordings are the ones where there's like a bunch of kids repeating, or maybe it's digital. It's probably digital, right? So he's reading like very slow, very plain. And the purpose of that is to like emphasize clarity of tajweed, clarity of ahkam, the sound of the letters for mu'allim. So it's a teaching style, right? So if you're trying to like work on tajweed, for example, that's pretty good, mu'allim style. But if you're listening for any other purpose, it might seem like it's too slow, too basic. There's repetition of the kids reading. The murattal style is like in between. He's just kind of reading. Again, emphasis is more on the flow of the surah. So if you're doing hifz and you're memorizing, or you're just listening casually, murattal is often like a good in between. If you're listening for maqamat, enjoyment, kind of like feeling his energy as a reciter, then the mujawwid recitations are obviously a step up from that. And the emphasis there is more on the reading, on the art, different qira'at, reciter might read in and so on. So I don't have a recommendation. It kind of depends. If I had to say a general in between, probably murattal. But if you're listening for enjoyment, then mujawwid is nice. Okay. I'll play this a little bit more, then I'll jump to some of the other mujawwid stuff.
من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا وقل الحق من ربكم فمن شاء فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر إنا أعتدنا للظالمين نارا أحاط بهم سرادقها وإن يستغيثوا يغاثوا بماء كالمهل يشوي الوجوه بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا الشراب
Listen to the ending.
وساء كالمهل يشوي الوجوه بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا.
بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا. Okay, so so you should be able to hear there, especially the ending. بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا. Yeah, he's a beautiful reciter. What it says, he definitely does the best study imitation. Absolutely. And yeah, okay, so let's jump to Mu'tasim shared. If I missed anything, by the way, I think I missed something that Abu Hanifa shared somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Right there. Okay, so I'll play this one and then I'll jump to the Mujawid stuff. If anyone else has questions, please do ask. Just type them out in the chat box, because let's see. If anyone, I know some of you participate more than others, but if anyone has any questions, some of you who are a little bit quiet, Abbas, Adil, Ahsan, Fahad, Hassan, Chaudhry, Rizwan, Sanatullah, Sister Yasmin, others, please feel free to either jump in with the mic or just ask a question in the chat box. I'll leave a little bit of time at the end. We can, questions. But Jazakumullah khair, it's wonderful to have you all here. Let's do this one here, and then we'll get to some mujawid stuff. Okay, so you should be able to hear that. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. You know what I find really cool as a teacher, and maybe you guys as a student, you'll feel this as well. Like once you do the pattern, right? It actually makes it a lot easier to just hear these things, because right away you listen to this and you can hear it's like Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I don't know if you guys hear it that way, or if it's still a little bit confusing if like the pattern hasn't quite set in. But listening to this right away, you hear
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم.
So, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. What's that? Anyone? We kind of touched on it here and there today. Perfect. Yusuf says 1 5 5 4 3 4 5. And what do you notice? Because we've seen this in a few places, right? We saw this with the Afasy recitation that Yusuf shared, the YouTube short, right? Do you notice a parallel to this? Yusuf says, yeah, it's quite common. Okay, so what exactly is quite common? Yes, Abdurrahman has the answer. So it's building up to something higher, right? That's the answer. So you see how we started? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, right? But now, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, or Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Okay, so there's this build up. And now that's what I wanted, why I asked the question, because now when you listen to multiple clips and you listen to different reciters, what you'll notice as a student, you start to notice trends. Okay, and when you notice trends, you pick up on the trends and you start to do these trends yourself, and you'll realize that so there's like, at one level there are these patterns that I'm teaching you, and then at a different level there is like the how do you use these patterns. Okay, and not just how do you use these patterns, but what are common ways to use these patterns. I was teaching a student this past week, a one-on-one student I have. We were doing bayati, and he was like, my bayati is bayati, but it doesn't sound like bayati, right? and he had recorded something for me to like analyze and work through with him, like to improve it. And I told him, listen, your bayati is bayati, like notes wise it's bayati, but, and knowing his context, like he's interested in mujawwid and stuff like that, there are specific things that mujawwid reciters do with bayati that he's not doing, and that's why when he listens to himself, he's like, it's bayati, but it's not bayati, because his reference is like how mujawwid reciters typically do bayati, and often there's like a sequencing, right? So the way you start, right? The way you start to build up into the other ayat. So this is an example of that, right? With nahawand. 1-5, and then building up from there. Okay, so you'll hear that with these recitations, and it's important to pay attention to these trends, right? They occur across different recitations. Then when you recite, you can try that in your Fatiha. Keep it low at the beginning, then you start to build it up. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. I'll finish the surah. See that? I don't know if you guys noticed that. That's the thing that I just did right now, right? He did that, right? And that's when you listen to a lot of maqamat, it's all repetition. Even though it sounds like there's a lot going on, it's all repetition. Because once you go through a sequencing of the maqam, like you'll end up back at the same place and you're repeating. So I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I hum this thing, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, and then I played it and it was the same thing, right? I didn't listen to this before, but it's just the way the maqam works, that it's gonna carry on in a certain progression.
صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. ولا الضالين. Okay, so you like a kind of rapid fall there. Yeah, Parwez, the way you listed it out, you could try that in your own reading. Again, you have to read the surah quite a bit to kind of feel like what makes sense to you, what feels good, where do you want to go up, and so on. You don't want to overscript the whole thing, right? Because even though you notice trends, it's not like, it's still not scripted, right? Sometimes when you script it too much, you'll get to like your recitation will sound like scripted, but you'll notice that there are these trends that, you know, these build up, you go to the middle of the maqam, go high, and so on. Okay, so now I'll get to your question. Let me go through a few of these mujawwid stuff. Okay, and we're probably going to go over the hour. Hope you guys are okay with that. Someone asked if I'll send the recording. Fahad? Yeah, sure, I'll send you guys a recording. I'll see. Let us go to, okay, so maybe I'll leave Banda Balina and Shaykh Banda Balina and Shaykh Saad al-Ghamidi, since those are Murattal stuff. It's probably similar to the other ones. Let's get to Mu'tasim shared this one. So Shaykh Ahmed Nuaina, Shaykh Ahmed Nuaina is reciting in the style of Shaykh Mustafa Ismail. Okay, so he's kind of like a student that follows the same style. So we'll get to some Shaykh Mustafa as well.
ألم نجعل له عينين
الله 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 أكبر.
ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلقتحم العقبة وما أدريك ما العقبة.
Mu'tasim, if you have a specific question for this clip, you can ask.
سبحان الله. الله أكبر. مشرفنا عم الشيخ.
زادك الله شرفا وعلما.
فك رقبه
الله أكبر.
أو أطعم في يوم ذي مسغبه.
Okay, let's go back. So Muslim says the beginning part. So now the thing with mujawwad, okay, is that mujawwad is the word exaggerated comes to mind, right? There's a lot more going on, right? So sometimes people think, and I've had this, with students, they'll ask me, can we learn this maqam in mujawwad? Now, the foundation is the same. The structure of the maqam, meaning that same thing I showed you on the whiteboard, that's going to hold true whether it's mujawwad, whether it's murattal, whatever, right? Now, what's happening in mujawwad, there's more exaggerations, to put it that way, right? More emphasis, like sometimes going higher, using higher parts of the voice. So keep in mind what I said right at the beginning, right? What I said at the beginning, if you guys remember, was you have to start with the idea that it's going to be the same structure that we did in the whiteboard. Now it's just a matter of finding where it overlaps and that kind of thing. Okay, so let's listen again.
ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا.
So ولسانا. So he's doing higher, right? So if you hear ولسانا, ولسانا. Right? So sometimes you have to also transpose what the reciter is doing to maybe just lower in your voice. And that'll help you line up with the octave that you're familiar with. So وَلِسَانَهُ is وَلِسَانَهُ and then remember what I said about the puzzle, right? The piece that has green on the top, green on the bottom and blue on the top. You're going to extend it. So now, and then you could just start counting. So it's 5, right? But it's higher. He's doing, this is what we would call jawab, Hassan, to answer your question. He's reading in a higher portion of his voice. Let's go back.
ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلقد.
So can you hear that this is the bottom portion of the maqam, Montasim? Right here. So a reciter might be reading higher. This goes back to the idea of the octaves that I was talking about before. A person could be reciting in a second octave, but it's still the lower portion of the maqam, right? So if you listen to وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ, you'll hear that he's coming back to the bottom of the maqam. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. Okay, so it's the bottom portion of nahawand, but a higher octave. Okay, that's something to keep in mind, again, especially with mujawwad recitations, because the reciter might be using multiple octaves, right? So they might be using nahawand here, but also nahawand here. So it sounds like it's something higher, but it's not necessarily higher in the maqam. It's the lower portion of the maqam on a second octave. So listen here. وَمَا أَدْرِيكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ. He's going to recite. And this now is, so it's higher, but again, pay attention to this sort of thing. Because and again, yes, Maksun, you're correct. It's tricky. It's tricky because if you've done a maqam with me over here, and now you listen to a recitation and it's up here, right away you might think, okay, it's the upper portion of the maqam, but it might be the lower portion of the maqam, right? At a higher octave. So for example, pay attention to the sound now. Okay. Can you hear that, Muqtasim? And others, can you hear that that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. But it's not the same as 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see how it's connected? That's my 1. That's my 5. That's my 8. And now the 1, 2, 3, 4 that I did down here is the same 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's up here. And that's going back to the idea. Yusuf asked me earlier what's an octave, and Hassan, this also connected to your question that you asked me about qarar and jawab. So it's the same maqam transposed higher, right? So you'll hear the similarity between the 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So if you're listening to a clip and you hear right, that's this portion of the maqam, but it's being done up here. Okay. And it could go lower if your voice can go lower, right? I mean, sound technically can keep going, right? Until when you have these sounds like a dog whistle type of thing, right? What is it? It's the frequency, the pitch is too high for our ears, right? And then there's sounds that the pitch is too low for our ears. So sound keeps going. And then people's voices differ in terms of how you can use your voice to go high. But so the maqam, theoretically, it keeps going, right? As a theoretical construct. Let me keep going. Martin, is there anything more on this clip? I'll do a little bit more. And then... Okay, let's pause this one. Yusuf is saying, yes, it's higher, but can you do that with any note of nahawand? Yusuf, take the mic. I don't understand the question in text.
So you were saying like you could do like 1, 2, 3, 4 from like the 8.
Yeah.
So can you do the same from like the 5 in nahawand?
So yeah, because the whole thing will continue, right? So after here, if I say, let's see. I have to start a little bit lower to give myself enough space. So let me see. Okay, let me try. That's the 5. But my voice doesn't quite get there.
Okay.
Right? Because my voice breaks at that point. So I wouldn't really approach that because I know my voice and like I can feel that okay, that's gonna break over there. Right? But in the opposite direction you can go too. So for example, like so if you're reading right? If I say Shaykh Mustafa Ismail does this a lot. So if I recite do you hear that drop?
Yeah.
So if I say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, you can tell that's like the bottom portion of the maqam that I'm doing. Now if I go Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, can you tell that I dropped lower?
Yeah, I can tell.
So Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka. So that Iyaka and the other ayah that I read is like dropping down into the other octave. So these are all kind of things that are there. Sometimes as a student, you don't, as I said before, you don't necessarily have to try to break down every single thing. You could just have like conceptually be like, okay, the reciter dropped down and is coming back to this portion, and you know that that's your 1, 2, 3, 4 of the maqam. Let's pause this one. Rizwan is saying, Salam alaikum salam. What shall be done to touch a higher octave? Anything to practice? So one thing that's again, every student is different. Generally speaking, I don't emphasize or overemphasize like going super high, right? I find that for most students, just the 1 octave is pretty good. Like there's a lot you can do in just 1 octave. And so it might vary, like there might be specific students I might say, like, especially when I'm doing like a coaching type of thing, where I might say, okay, why don't you try like 8, 9, 10, for example, right? Or like 1, 2, 3 of the next octave. But that's specific to specific students, because generally I find that there's like this obsession is the word that comes to mind. I'm not saying you one, but kind of generally like this kind of like fascination. That's a better word. There's like a over fascination with super long breath and super high pitch, right? And for most people, I find that that's like not the right place to start. So that's why I emphasize like structure, and especially at the bottom, and then working within 1 octave, because there's a lot you can do with that. But if you want to go higher, if I could give one advice that's kind of seems to work for a lot of people, is start a little bit lower. If you get used to, so you could do this in SingScope. I've shown it to some students before. I don't want to do it now because it'll take time from the nahawand stuff. But if I read nahawand, suppose I go, okay, suppose that's my 1, 2, 3, 4, my 3, 2, 1 of nahawand. If I say, now, because I started in the middle of my voice, as I go high, I'm going to run out of space. See, I got to like about 5 and my voice breaks. Okay. Does that mean I have a limited range? I can't go to 5? No, it's just that I'm starting high in my voice. If I start lower, so now I'm like to like the 8, 9, 10 type of thing, and my voice is breaking there, right? So you can sometimes just shift your voice a little bit lower, and it might take practice to feel comfortable there, right? But that's something you could do. And then beyond that, it would be like, this is outside of maqamat, it's more like vocal practice. So if you look for any like vocal singing type apps or anything of that sort, you might find exercises that can help push you higher. Again, like with maqamat, this is something that I really try to emphasize with everyone, like students, non-students, whatever. Like I think balance is important. And also like there's stuff that's how do you put it? Like theoretically, if you had unlimited amount of time, then you could sort of put your energy in multiple directions, right? So it's prioritization, right? That's what it comes down to with this maqamat stuff. How much is too much is a question that we kind of always have to be asking ourselves. I, as a teacher, have to like continuously revisit and ask myself, how much is too much for myself? How much is too much for my students? Because if you get carried away, you can get carried away, right? And then the art becomes like a thing of itself, instead of being there to support you in your engagement with tilawah of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So something to keep in mind, right? Like, do you necessarily want to go do singing practice to hit 8, 9, 10? Or are you good with just reciting and trying to like emphasize the ayat that are being recited? And you can get a lot done. Like listen to Shaykh Hady that we're listening to, or most of these reciters, right? The one from the Haram. I'm not familiar with that reciter's name. Shaykh Afasy. A lot of that, all that's happening within that 1 octave, right? Within that 1 to 8. So this is a general thing as well, not for you specifically, but general for all students, right? And for myself as well as a teacher. Like there has to be balance built in there in your approach to maqamat. Otherwise, it's very easy to make the art like a thing of itself, instead of being there as a tool to engage with the Quran and to enjoy the Quran and so on. Let me jump to Shaykh Mustafa Ismail, and then I have Shaykh Minshawi, and the rest. What is this one here? Oh, that was just a search I did. Okay. Shaykh Mustafa Ismail, where do we start? There's like so much. Shaykh Mustafa Ismail's nahawand. Okay. How many of you are not familiar with Shaykh Mustafa Ismail? Or okay, yes or no question. Are you familiar with Shaykh Mustafa Ismail? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean his recitation is beautiful to listen to. I mean, like it's just even his murattal, which I don't think it's the attention that it deserves. It's just so soothing. It's simple and elegant, if I can if I could say it. That's with regards to his murat, you know. Yeah, I mean, like, what can be
His
said? I
Murata
mean,
Parvez is correct. So when people think of Shaykh Mustafa Ismail, like his Mujawid recitations are like well known, but he actually has a Murata whole Quran recorded. And it's beautiful because it's like this hybrid in between thing where he does a lot of stuff that other Muratal recitations don't have, right? But it's like a medium paced, right? You'll have to search for it. If you search for it, I used to, when I was doing hifz many years ago, I used to listen to some surahs like Shaykh Mustafa Ismail Muratal, because when you find a Mujawid thing, like suppose you go like you're supposed to Ibrahim, for example, or Surah Furqan here, you look for Surah Furqan in this Mujawid performance style, and it's not going to be covered to cover, like beginning to end. All right, it'll be like a portion, maybe the ending of the surah or somewhere in the middle. But if you find his Muratal recordings, you'll find the whole surah together in one place, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, so the reason I asked who's familiar with Shaykh Mustafa Ismail, and Yusuf says no, is because out of all of the Mujawid style reciters, he's more on the artistic side of things. Like he's pushing the art. Okay. So his recitations, if you're not familiar with it, it might seem like too much sometimes, but it's good. It's good. Let's go for... So Surah Furqan, this is one classic recitation of his, the end of Surah Furqan. Sister Yasmin, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah khairan. Surah Furqan ending, wa ibadur rahman, is like a classic clip. Something you guys should listen to. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. Right, so that's his style of reciting. That's a good clip. This one here, Surah Tahrim, is one of the most probably extreme clips of Shaykh Mustafa Ismail. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. Let's listen to this. Okay, before we get to the fun part, just listen to this again. So, yeah, he's higher. Yeah, okay, are you guys hearing the bottom part of nahawand there? Yeah, okay, so if you've done the patterns with me, that's exactly what I was saying at the beginning. The patterns are there. The patterns are, even though it might sound a little different, it's based on the same thing we had on the whiteboard at the beginning. Okay. So, I'll do it lower. I'll transpose it to my voice. So, I'll do it in the middle. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're gonna hear all that again. Straight. That's like straight whiteboard stuff. Whenever I do this, it's off the camera. I'm tapping the iPad that has the whiteboard. So, so you're gonna hear that. Do it again. So remember what I mentioned before about going below and then coming back up. So he's dropping below here. Yeah, good question. Yusuf is asking, is that ajam? Okay, so at the top of nahawand, he's going to ajam. So they sometimes refer to this as jiharka. Jiharka ajam on the fifth daraja, or jiharka on the fourth. All right. So putting jiharka on top of nahawand and then coming back to nahawand. So so that fluctuation on the top is jaharka on the top, and then you come back down into nahawand. It's very common, especially with Shaykh Mustafa Ismail. If you listen to a lot of his nahawand, it's a very common thing that he does.
عسى ربه إن طلقكن أن يبدله أزواجا خيرا. أزواجا خيرا منكن مسلمات مؤمنات قانتات تائبات عابدات سائحات طيبات
So this clip that this is one of the more he's pushing it in terms of the art. Assalamu alaikum. If anyone needs to leave, we'll wrap up. So just a few more things that some of you want to go over.
إن تتوبا إلى الله فقد صارت قلوبكما. وإن تظاهرا عليه فإن الله هو مولاه. وجبريل وصالح المؤمنين والملائكة بعد ذلك ظهير. عسى ربه إن طلقكن أن يبدله أزواجا خيرا منكن.
So he's using these kind of like drops in between, and it's adding a lot to the recitation. For most people, probably it's too much. Like I don't think I would necessarily advise for you guys to do that. But it's something you can listen and enjoy and appreciate, right? So he's reading Muslimatim mu'minat. He's reading Muslimatim mu'minatin qanitatin taibatin abidatin. So he's using a lot of range, a lot of like up and down, even within the words, like Muslimatin, kind of these drops. Again, listen and enjoy. If If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, if you find it to be too much, then that's okay. I wouldn't necessarily advise you guys do that in a normal reading, especially at most of you guys' Ziz level. Okay, so that's that. Let's see. Sheikh, someone had posted Shaykh Minshawi. So I had another thing with Shaykh Minshawi, but this Hassan shared this one. Let's go over this. So Shaykh Minshawi uses a lot of. Let's listen. Sound is a little fuzzy, but that's the best clip sometimes. So Shaykh Minshawi is going to center around the 5 a lot. I'm trying to hear the beginning it. It's أقم الصلاة, right? Oh, فأقم وجهك. فأقم وجهك. Okay, so فأقم وجهك here. So listen for the fa. فأقم Okay, so that's what he's doing here. Which is classic Minshawi. Okay. فأقم. Oh, it's right here actually. فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا. فأقم وجهك. So this is classic Minshawi. And with some students in the past, we broke it down number by number. I don't remember it off the top of my head. Hassan, you probably have access to that. Hassan Chaudhry. We had done this before. 1 5 4 5 6 5, something like that. Classic Minshawi. Do it again. Beautiful, 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 Shaykh Minshawi. And that's classic. Like, so if you listen to other clips, like he'll recite that same type of pattern. What do you hear there at the end? Perfect. Sister Jasmine says 3, 2, 1, 0, 1. Right. So even though there's a middle portion where, you know, as a student you might listen and it's a little ambiguous, pay attention to the beginning, pay attention to the end. It'll help you make sense of the whole. Okay. 1 5. Then there's stuff in between, right? That's Minshawi. Okay. Let's go a little bit more, and then I do have another coaching call afterwards. So those of you who are waiting for the coaching call, just hang in there because this is fun. Ibrahim is okay. So some of you are asking for the recording. Here's the deal. Yusuf asked me as well, because the last time I did this session, I invited you guys to join live, and then so this is part of the coaching program, right? So here's the dilemma for me, is that honestly I would love to share with everyone, but it's part of the coaching program that some students are registered and paying for the program, and the recordings are part of the program. So maybe I'm gonna ask them. Okay, let's do that. Because I know it's beneficial for everyone, but I guess trying to juggle a few things here, right? So the students that are in the program, they have access to these recordings, and as Harun was asking me, can I post a recording of this sort of thing? So that's what might happen when we do this sort of session. There'll be a follow-up maybe on in our Discord. He said Telegram. We used to have a Telegram channel. I might share a clip of this Minshawi nahawand pattern, and they practice that and so on. So that's the challenge, Yusuf, because you asked me that. So yeah, and someone else asked me before too. Someone else, I forgot who. And it's maybe I'll share it for a limited time or something. I don't know. It's kind of like this. It's a constant thing, how much to share. But it's obviously part of the paid program. So students in the program have access to everything. And maybe that's an incentive for the rest of you to join the program as well. But for now, I just wanted to kind of have fun, invite you on to share in the session, and see where it goes. Okay. So here, it's reading alert. So here might be a case where, like, if he switches between an octave and another. Let me see. Okay, so you hear that. So this is common, and this is the octave thing I was talking about before, and related to Hassan's question about Quran and Jawab, right? So Hassan, forget about the term Quran and Jawab for now. Just here, you'll hear that he's switching between the octaves. So like the same thing I was showing you guys, but now switching. So like that trying to match to what he's doing. ذلك الدين القيم. Okay, so okay. ذلك الدين القيم. So again, everyone's voice is different. That's why it's sometimes hard to navigate these sorts of things, but it's clear that he's reading here higher, in a higher octave, and then he drops for this phrase lower. So ذلك الدين القيم. It's hard for me to do. It's hard for me to do. Sister Jasmine saying it almost sounds like it would work even if you didn't flip octave, like it would still connect smoothly. You see, because the note, like the 1 and the 8 are related, right? Let me listen. I have to listen to this again. Maybe after the call for the in the coaching program. I'll think about this a little bit more. Let me see. It's low for me. ذلك الدين القيم. ذلك الدين القيم. Anyways, it's sometimes flipping between octaves. So like from the 1 to the 8. If I did it in my voice, how I did it before would make sense, right? I showed you like the 1, 2, 3, 4 and the 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's kind of what's happening, right? So anyways, you can flip between it because it's related. So repeating, right? So Mujawid, you'll have a lot of that repetition. What was the last thing? So we did this, did that. Oh, there was a clip that okay. So Sanat Allah had asked about, where did I put this here?